So I was on Facebook earlier this week and I saw this lick pop by from Matteo Mancuso, and it was, sort of a 130 odd note lick that I was kind of blown away by, and my reaction was, okay, I want to learn that. So I've taken a few hours to kind of figure out what was going on. I've tabbed it out and it will be available on my Patreon for those who want it to learn it. And I thought it might be an opportunity to talk about some kind of wider things about building speed and practicing licks and that kind of thing. So that's what I'm going to do, I think. So the first thing is that basically anyone who can play this kind of thing is going to have started off at a point where they started doing this kind of process. One of the most common things I think you'll hear about people when they talk about building speed is using a metronome and incrementally building the speed up. This is something that I spent ages doing as a child or teenager, whatever you want to call it. And the basic process is you might start playing the lick essentially around half speed or a bit slower, and then sort of throughout a session you try and incrementally increase it by like a BPM at a time, so that your hands and brain don't really notice the speed increase. By the end of the session, hopefully you've added a certain amount of not only accuracy to the lick or the thing that you're practicing, but also some speed. And then the next day, same process again. You might start slightly below where you were ending on the session before and gradually build your way up. And so what you end up with is going sort of incrementally up in tempo until you reach something like what Matteo was playing. I think that's around 170 BPM. So at the moment where I'm at with this lick, I've just started practicing it really today, the whole thing, and I can play it around about 102 BPM okay. And the temptation with some of this stuff is to just keep pushing the metronome, but I think it's worth resisting that. The reason being, you teach a couple of people in real life, and the temptation is to try and push towards that target tempo too soon. Basically you end up kind of wasting practice time because your fingers just fluff around a bit more than they do when you're playing at a slower tempo, and I think you end up stumbling more times. So personally I think the real benefit is to play it as slowly as you can play it cleanly all the way through consistently once you've got the lick learned all the way through, so that you're not wasting time with kind of failed attempts, if that makes sense. I guess we could just look at the lick a bit here. So I've taken the time to kind of put the fingering indications for the bits where I think there's kind of an important finger to try and land on. So that's in the tab as well. But so he calls this, this is essentially like an A Dorian lick. If you haven't seen Matteo's playing, I think probably you dig it. He's a really cool kind of jazz fusion player. Plays with like a bass technique, but amazing kind of fast and clean and all that sort of good stuff that we like. So the lick starts like this. Which in itself is quite a nice little musical phrase. So I think the other cool thing about this lick is you could break down kind of every bar and there's interesting stuff in there. So we go, and then move to a C, and moving up through that shape. So C, D, E on the A string, and then a G on the D string, and then a C on the G string, and then an E, a D, down to a B, A, down to an A, sorry. So this is a chunk that I've practiced for a while. So in itself a useful thing. So that might be another idea for how you can practice this stuff, kind of break it into these cells that you can or modules that you can add on to one another and repetitively practice. So this is the first loop that I might practice. Then I add another cell. Once I'm happy that that's quite clean. So that was the next phrase. So that very first ascending thing. I think it's worth learning the lick just for those first ways of ascending up kind of through the A Dorian framework. And then we get that kind of interesting pattern. So again, just very slowly. So kind of doing some arpeggios and so a really kind of nice way to descend, I think, through a pattern. And then we kind of ascending. And then back down to kind of just basically a pentatonic with a B at the top. So that bar. I think it's a really kind of tidy. And then this was kind of one of the main things that jumped out at me. A really kind of nice beat. Sorry, my camera ran out of battery. So yeah, we got to. So a bit of chromaticism. And then kind of a jazz cliche. So we ascend up through kind of pentatonics, Dorian, and then anyway, as I say, the tab for that will be on my Patreon if you want it. It's probably going to be easier to kind of break it apart from there. But things that stuck out to me: that kind of jazz cliche, I'm probably going to learn that in loads of keys. I thought that was really cool. As I say, the thing to resist with this is the temptation to push your metronome up too fast, too quickly. The point is that when you're practicing it slow, it's kind of building it into your muscle memory and making the brain-hand link as to how the whole thing feels and looks. And it's easier to build that kind of link when you're playing it slowly and correctly every time than if you're just trying to rush your way through the lick and aiming for that kind of really fast goal. It's worth kind of bearing in mind that somewhere in the future and that you need to build your way up there slowly and incrementally. That's kind of my take on this. So whether you're Matteo Mancuso, Matteo Sasato, any of these great players, Andy Wood, whoever it is, I'm pretty much certain that anything you see them play that they've got really fast at, if it seems complicated like that, either they've worked on that lick specifically and worked it up to speed, or it's something that's in their wheelhouse that they've practiced over and over again, or played similar things repeatedly so that it feels natural to them. So when you first come to play someone else's licks, whether they be mine or anyone else's, probably initially they're going to feel unnatural, and that's why we kind of work things slowly so that we get the anatomy of the lick kind of in our brains and in our hands before we try and blast them out at speed. So I'm going to work on this lick throughout the week, and maybe before I upload this video we'll see if I can get it to any kind of sensible speed. 102 BPM, as I said, seems around about comfortable at the moment. Let's slip up. So yeah, it was comfortable and now it's not. Let's just try one more time. Nope. Right, so got it eventually. But until I can play that a few times in a row cleanly at that tempo, there's no point in me pushing that metronome up. It might turn out that by the end of the day I could get this, a few BPM faster. What I guarantee is that once you've slept on the lick, if you've practiced it slowly, methodically and cleanly so you can play it consistently at that tempo, when you come back to it tomorrow, I believe it should feel a little bit cleaner still, a little bit more natural, as sleeping on that kind of brain-hand connection seems to help. So that's how I would suggest practicing this really cool lick. Break apart bits of it even, maybe I could just take that little phrase and speed that up quite a chunk. So yeah, that's at 130 BPM, but that might be a good way to kind of take little chunks of it rather than the whole thing and try and build up kind of motor speed there. But yeah, as I say, the lick will be up on my Patreon if you want to check it out. Go give Matteo Mancuso a follow and shout out if you haven't already. I think you'll really dig his playing. Thank you for watching, and yeah, this is how I think you can kind of build speed. It takes a lot of time and a lot of practice. if anyone tells you there's an easy way to play quickly and stuff, they're probably just trying to sell you a course, I'd imagine. I think it's pretty universally agreed that there is this time that it takes to build up speed and the motor function to be able to play fast, and I think pretty much everyone agrees that it's an incremental process. So thank you for watching. If you could like and subscribe, that would really help. There's also a buy me a coffee link in case you want to help me increase my caffeine intake. But thank you for watching. Cheers.